Okay, we're not going to evaluate anything. Everything you say is going to go on the board.
Purpose is clearly, of course, a very powerful motivator, but it also can be like a trap.
I was shocked because compassion for others for me was very high. And the one that was very, very low for me is self-compassion.
It's not about resolving tensions, because it is through that tension, innovation comes out.
Hi, I'm Nafisah, and I'm building better leaders with Kausern Hieu.
Hello. Hi, welcome to another episode of Building Better Leaders with Kausern Hieu, and I am Kausern Hieu. So where we have a guest companion, and we will be tackling the letters that were coming in from you, leadership challenges that you're facing. And we usually will be able to provide some kind of pointers, some perspective, and for you to be able to connect the dots yourself, right? So that's what we do. And you're in for a treat. Today we have got Nafisah, and a little bit about Nafisah. I only met her actually very recently. Compared to all the other companion guests which we have, they are mainly my friends or people which I look up to in the industry. And what's interesting is that I only met Naf in December, about like last December actually. So we were I was in Singapore for a training, and Nafisah is from Singapore, by the way. So I was in Singapore for a training, and we were on the same group, same table. And what's interesting is that in that training itself, I started to quickly realize that there were a lot of friends, Nafisah's friends, and it's like there's this community there. I was like the outsider, so I feel really like, oh no, it's like what did I step into? And because they were like talking, there were a lot of past references and so on. So I felt like, oh, okay, maybe I'm the stranger here. But very quickly, what Nafisah did is that she really made me feel very comfortable. Yeah, so she welcomed me, she spoke to me, she listened, and like how there's a saying is that our face mirrors our heart, and she has a very kind heart. So the moment I walked in, and I don't know, something about her. She's just extremely kind. So she makes me feel really comfortable during the whole time. And we were there for 2 days, right? Yeah,
2
full
days, yeah.
Yeah, so 2 full days. She makes sure that I had lunch, I have tea breaks, and and so on. So I really appreciate her warmth, and the reason why also I wanted her to be speaking to all of us today, to share her perspective, is because she comes from a very interesting background, right? So she was a principal for a school, which later Nafisah will explain a little bit more. But what I really like is that when you are a school principal, what's interesting is that a lot of times you are leading without authority, because you need to manage ministries of education. You need to manage officials, you need to manage boards, you need to manage parents, you need to manage students, and so on. And most of the time, all this seemingly have more power than us in this case, right? But yet you need to move the pieces on the chessboard in this case. And how do you do that? So I think that is something which is really powerful, which in the workplace, a lot of times we depend on the authority that was given to us, the position that's given to us. But what true leadership is a lot of times is about leading without the authority. So there's clearly going to be some things that we're going to learn from Naf today, and hopefully it can be applied on the letters that we have received. On top of that, the other reason why I wanted to get Naf in is because when you're working in an education line, a lot of times, especially I know a lot of teachers, they get burnt out very quickly, because they have to balance between emotional labor, what they're really passionate about, versus the realities of life, which is as simple things as as salary and so on, right? So sometimes it may
Mm.
not be as cushy as corporate, right? But yet there's this calling to be able to serve in a non-profit or in education in this case. So how do you balance all that? So I think that is also another very interesting perspective that we can hopefully get Nafisah to be able to weave in into some of the letters if it's relevant in this case. But other than that, for those who don't know Nafisah, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you, Kausern, for having me here in the podcast. Um, my name is Nafisah, but everyone calls me Naf for short. And I think Kausern is one of them who calls me Naf. I think my experience has always been in education industry, and also in community-based programs. So I do a lot of programs and I design programs for the community. I work with a lot of self-help organizations, even ministries, to work with families of different groups, low-income families, couples, and so on, mothers, women, especially now, specifically now. And in the education industry, I started in 1992. So
Wow.
that would be like almost 33 years, I think, this year. And a couple of years ago, I think about 5 years ago, I actually was invited to lead a private institution in Singapore. It's called a Madrasah, where the students will actually take examinations, national examinations like O levels and PSLE, on top of Islamic studies exams as well.
Yep.
So, and I was a principal of primary, secondary, and pre-university
Wow.
levels. Yeah, so I work with different groups of teachers with
Okay.
three different levels of students and three different groups of parents,
Whoa.
which was, I would say it was a very enriching experience, yet could be a challenging one because when I was a principal, COVID came. So
Yeah.
it was very challenging, especially for schools, because every day there are new directives which we have to manage. So a lot of changes going on. So we talk about change management. That 5 years, it a lot of changes had to happen. So that was a time where I think, as a leader, you learn about yourself a lot. Um, what you can do, and you actually get surprised by the amount of strength, and the amount of resilience that you have. And you also begin to understand the people around you.
Wow.
Yeah, only when there are crises that you see how different people can be,
Wow.
whether it makes them stronger or it breaks them. And as a leader, how do we then navigate, that situation so that the people around you are still going to feel supported, and yet at the same time, you also need to feel supported. And how do we actually manage that? So it was a very interesting time, I would say. It was a very interesting time, because it was a time when people management actually gives a new meaning
Okay.
to yourself, and all the things that you have learned in leadership. For myself, I'm talking about my own experience. Everything and anything that I've learned in all my leadership training really took a test during that period. And there are times where whatever I have learned, or the topics I have learned, I just have to throw it out, and I have to come up with my own strategies, because the environment is different already, and the challenges are so different. And you need to be the one who had to give assurance to people when you yourself are not sure of what's really happening around.
Yeah.
So when you're giving assurance to others and say things are going to be okay, when deep inside you are not sure whether things are really going to be okay.
Wow.
So how do you do that? Yeah. So that was really very, I would say, for myself, it was a personal growth for me. Yeah, it was not just a leadership growth, but a personal growth. Yeah. So I think, yeah, that was. I wanted to say that was the short of the experience, but it became quite a long sharing. Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah,
No, I really
that's
appreciate it. I
me.
really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks, Nafisa, for sharing that. I think, as mentioned, that clearly, I think the letters that we received,
Mm,
I mean, we both have kind of like glanced through it. Clearly, there's going to be some of your experience is going to definitely
yes.
help some of the letters that we have received. Okay, so let's get on
Mm,
straight to the first letter. Okay, let me just read out very quickly. Dear Building Better Leaders, I lead a regional function in a multinational, and most days it feels like I'm steering a ship with multiple captains. Why? Because none of them report directly to me. My role is to align and drive strategy and operations across several local markets in APAC. While each country has its own leadership team, culture, and business goals, my mandate from headquarters is to bring consistency, efficiency, and regional impact. The challenge? Each market wants to do things their own way. Some are open, but others are very protective of their autonomy and view regional involvement as interference. At the same time, I'm under pressure from my global boss to show results fast, meaning to win new business pitches and ensure operational excellence. Now, how do I lead when I'm not the decision maker in any market, yet I'm accountable for the outcomes? How do I get buy in, drive change, and motivate people who don't technically report to me without damaging relationships?
mm, mm,
So, let me just very quickly start off. Then we can see what we can do for this letter writer.
mm, yeah.
I think this is a very classic regional leadership challenge. Uh,
Mm,
Me having worked in a multinational before, I can fully understand that. Even though I have not held on a regional position before, but I do know of a few people who has that position, and that is a very common thing. That is, they are given the kind of high responsibility, but very low direct authority on each market. Yet they have to deliver, right? So especially you're sitting in a regional position. So I think that it's a very classic thing. So, dear letter writer, I just want to let you know that it's quite normal. You're not the only one who's facing this. The other thing I would like to also maybe some assumption as well, that I suspect that this letter writer previously maybe held on a local position before, like she let's call her she, let's she or he has held on a previous local position before, like she was previously probably a market leader before, and perhaps did a really great job and maybe got promoted to the regional position, and now this letter writer have to take care of different markets as well. So hence that's why the tension, right? Knowing that there's always going to be pushback from the local markets, because there's always this fear of interference and so on. And I think being in that position before, perhaps this letter writer has empathy. But yet now on the other side of the table, it's like, okay, so what do I do? Now I really
yeah.
feel it. I've got pressure from my boss to deliver, but yet I need to, figure this group of people who doesn't report to me directly. They're all dotted line reporting to me. What do I do in this case? So that's kind of like my earlier thoughts before we actually jump into any sort of really practical advice for this letter writer. Any thoughts on your side, Nafisa, for this person?
Mm. Yeah, I think for me, when I hear this issue, the thing about two things that came to mind. Number one is of course the accountability on the outcome. Um, I mean that comes with the job that the
Yeah.
letter writer is actually holding, but at the same time because there are lots of I would say the stakeholders that he or she is working with, and it's it, regionally there are different expectations as well, and different I would say cultural understanding of how things are going to be done, and that can also serve as a challenge for him. or her in that aspect, right? So when we work with people, this also come from where I was coming from,
Yeah.
where I work with not just students or directly reporting under me would be my staff members, but I also work with other stakeholders, the community, the different agencies, parents especially, and we don't have I don't have direct authority over them. And what is really interesting is whatever results or outcome that we are accountable for, somehow or other, all these stakeholders have, they do have a certain influence and a certain expectations. And that can serve as a challenge, especially for the letter writer. So I'm understanding where he or she is coming from, the challenge of managing the different aspects of relationships that you have with the people around you. So to me, I think one of the aspects that I would think about would be the focus is more on relationship management
Okay.
rather than just the work per se. That was the first sense I got when when you read out the letter just now, that this is more than just being accountable for what the outcome that her or his direct boss is asking for, but it's a lot of managing relationships. And that comes with it, like I said, cultural understanding, expectations, and the influences of other things that come when working with people. And I think that is why, many people say, I prefer to work with machines or computers. They don't talk back and all. Because trying to, I think about, building trust, it takes time.
Yeah.
Building trust through the relationship management, it takes a longer time, which I'm not sure whether this letter writer has, because I think just being promoted and all that. So managing that itself, it's people do not know who you are and
Right.
where you are coming from as well.
Yeah.
So it's both ways. And another thing that comes to my mind is, how do you ensure credibility on your part? you know and that also comes in, like, building trust is not just about building trust in terms of managing that relationship. I can manage my own expectations, I can manage my own understanding of their background and cultural influences, but then how do I ensure that I am credible enough and able to build that trust with the people that I'm working with? So that's the first thought that comes to my mind. Yeah.
I'm just curious, because of your background, I'm wondering how do you, focus on relationship management as well as also build credibility very quickly when you were in
Mm,
your previous
yeah.
assignment.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, because when I first came in, the first year, I remember the school didn't quite have good relationship with parents. Not good, not good. I would say open relationship with parents. And the first thing I did was to build rapport with them first. And that's why I mentioned about relationship management. I think in any leadership experience, that should be number one. While we build systems, we focus on processes and structures, especially when we are in a job where we work with people, relationship management and building rapport and building trust is important. So the first time I did was I actually invest a lot of time in talking to parents. Even simple gestures for me. For example, the first thing I did for the 5 years I was the principal, I would be the first one to be at the gate to
Right.
welcome the students.
Right.
I'll be at the gate because I know that when I'm standing at the gate, I'm actually welcoming the students. Actually, it's more of safety issues, but the parents will drop off their child, and most of them would actually say hi to me,
Wow.
like, how are you? And to me, that simple gesture of just smiling and raising your hand and nodding and saying hi, that's already building rapport. And when people know, people like you when you are like them. So when they like you and you are like them, that's when trust will be built. So for me, showing, genuine interest and like understanding where they're coming from. So I have a lot of dialogue sessions with them. I have a lot of conversation with the parents. I also invite some parents over for just to have conversations to find out what actually is your concern. So if parents write in and complain, I will invite them over to my office to just have a sense of, you know, what is really not going right. So I think feedback, while some people would say, complaint is complaint. Yeah, when you peel the onion, the layers of onion, there is some feedback. And that feedback gives you a lot of idea of what's really going right and what's not going right, what is going wrong. So that was the first thing I did, is actually to develop relationships with them, to show that, I am genuinely concerned about what you are. Because I realized that when people trust your intentions, they become more receptive
Yeah.
to your ideas, and by considering that, okay, whatever insights they have are valuable, and we genuinely are interested in their concerns, then we are positioning ourselves as their trusted collaborators. And that's what I wanted. That I am not just an outsider trying to influence you, but I am your trusted collaborator. I'm your partner here. So I feel that that was the starting point for me. And oh yes, the first year and I shared with them my email. I received a lot of emails. And on the second year of my leadership, I stopped giving out my email address. I think I have enough to work on for the next 4 years.
Your work
Yes.
was cut out for you.
So when you open the door and everybody
Yeah,
just start
yeah,
coming in,
yeah.
but because of that, there were a lot of changes we could make to our systems and structure and processes, which in the past maybe the staff didn't realize that it was a problem. Yeah, so I actually valued that, and I always I was telling the staff, I said every feedback is very valuable, and the fact if people write in with their names there, it's not anonymous, means they are sincere about sharing um the feedback with you. So take that and be curious. I said instead of being upset, be curious. And I think that is important, to be curious on what more, what is it that I'm missing out. Just be curious and be kind. So that part itself, I think, is quite helpful. To me personally, I found it very helpful. Yeah.
I think yeah, I'm learning a lot from just that little bit that you share, right? I think the letter writer should, like what you say, first of all, extend his
Mm,
or her hand to the local markets, and to be able to say, oh, okay, let me listen. How do we quickly build rapport? Is kind of like listen to what are the challenges that you're going
yeah.
through. So
Yeah.
rather than coming across as I think a lot of times when if you're the local market, there's this thought about that would the mothership wants to standardize certain things. So
Mm,
rather than standardizing it, it's really about no, I'm not here to standardize, but I'm here to support you in this
yes.
case, right? Because if you win, we win as well. So I think it's about the support. So in order to show support, like you said, it's really about going out there to literally, at the gate to say hello, right? And to from there start to build that rapport, like you say, and to be not afraid of receiving feedback, because like you said, every piece of feedback, they shouldn't be upset with the feedback, but they should be curious to say, okay, these are because I think someone once told me before that feedback is good because they still care. Because if they
Yeah.
don't care, they wouldn't even give any feedback. They would just leave.
Yes.
In this case,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
it's data, right? So it's important for us then to be able to be curious about like all this data and see what we can do with it. So I think this is clearly something which the letter writer can do in this case, and
Mm.
it's not to that means to move the headspace, or to move to reframe to say that I'm not here to standardize, but I'm here to support instead, right? So that is something
Mm.
which the letter writer can
Yeah.
consider.
Yeah, I agree with you on that about, coming across as I'm being supportive. And I want to add on to that. Because like you mentioned that, some things that it is very standardized. Um, some people will ask, what is it for me then? What is in for me? I mean, this may work across the board, but may not work for me. So another um one way that perhaps the letter writer could look into is actually how to leverage that influence, and framing it in such a way that whatever initiatives or whatever processes that are being shared, how can that resonate with um, the market's priorities, or the different groups that you're working with, what are their priorities, and how can that initiatives or that standardized process resonate with them. So frame it in that way, in such a way that, yeah, while we all have different ways of doing things or maybe different priorities, but there are some common values or shared goals that they have. And if we are going to do some of these changes or some of these different efforts, then what are the benefits of these proposed changes that are aligned to the priorities of that particular group that he or she is working with? And I think that is also quite important, because the languaging, when you said about being supportive, so
Yeah.
I feel that sometimes the languaging also, it can come across as being directive, or are
Yeah.
we being, emphasizing collaboration in that way? Because working with people, there's always this tendency of, do I say it in a way that is quite instructive, or what words do I choose so that it indicates that I'm here with you, I'm here to support you? So that language is very, I think it's quite crucial here. Something maybe to consider, the letter writer can consider before meeting with all the different groups. Um, Whether here I need to be more directive, or here I can be a bit more collaborative, or here I could emphasize a little bit more on, a bit of balance, to show that, oh, I'm here supporting you, and this is your priority. I understand that. So how can we align that together? So I think that is also quite something that he or she can consider that as well. Yeah.
What I like that you said, it is to be able to customize the language as well, because like you said,
Yeah.
some
Mm.
markets need to be much more directive, and
Yeah.
some a little bit more, you know maybe have to manja a bit, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So so that's but it's but that starts off with the earlier uh, assumption that we have to start building rapport, right, to build that trust in order
Yeah.
for this to happen.
Yes.
Because if you go in there and then you straight away, there's no trust, there's no rapport, and straight away you just say that, hey, this is the
Mm.
directive and this is what it is. I
Mm.
think that's really what people don't want in this case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's great. The other thing that I can also think about that which would be helpful for the letter writer is also to have this thing called systems thinking, which means
Mm.
that it is not just the his or her solo endeavor to do this thing, right? So it is also to learn how to leverage on peer influence. That means, like, because let's assume that this person is taking care of, I don't know, 10 markets. Clearly, there'll
Mm.
be some markets which are much more receptive, and then to be able to leverage on some of these markets which are so-called supportive of what's going on, and they're very collaborative in this case, and to be able to leverage on that, to be able to influence some of the markets who may not be very receptive. That is also important. I think that's something which the letter writer can consider as well, in terms of, like, not just, it's just not me. I'm not the only one who's doing all this. I can actually
Yeah.
leverage on this
Yes.
community which I'm building in this case.
Yeah. Agree. I call it your champions and collaborators, allies. Yeah. It remind me of yeah, you I remembered the experience I had. When I talk about parents, right? So what you shared about actually resonates with me, in the sense that I get a few, I would say, influential individuals. So you can, for the letter writer, can identify some influential groups within the market, who actually align with your goal, and engage them as your allies. To help support whatever efforts that you are doing. So I call them my champions.
Nice.
And before I make any decision, I would usually invite them. So there's this
Yeah.
sense of shared on ownership. I
Yeah.
would
Yeah.
ask them for their input, and acknowledge their expertise, because everybody has expertise in different areas. So I
Okay.
acknowledge their expertise, seek their input, and I said, oh, you are my champion. And of course, I don't call them my allies, but I identify them as my allies. And I say, okay, my champions, and perhaps you can help us. So the first thing I would do is to influence them first, to kind of get them to buy in.
Yeah.
And then they will, if they believe so much in this initiative or in these efforts, then they would be the one who will go around to help, support that change efforts or whatever
Okay.
efforts that we are doing. So perhaps the letter writer could also identify, some, I would say, influential groups or influential individuals who are aligned, who has that same inclination or aligned with whatever that the intention or the purpose that the letter writer has, and to seek their, input, their expertise. And then we have this, what we call, like you said, we can't do it alone. So we
Yeah.
create this sense of shared ownership, in this decision-making process. Yeah.
Okay.
And based on my own experience, I would say can be quite powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, can
I
be
can
very
imagine that.
powerful.
I can
Yeah,
imagine that.
yeah,
I think the other thing, I think we've given quite a fair bit of bullet points for the letter writer to consider. I
yes,
would like to just probably close off by also saying that uh, this person also have to manage the boss as well, because the boss is, I think in the letter it says that that's under pressure, right,
yeah,
to deliver. So I think it's also learning how to buy time from the global boss as well, but
mm,
to very quickly show quick wins as well. So I think I just want to hear from you very quickly, as you take on the position of took on the position of principal. Clearly, like you said, building trust and so on takes time, but yet you're also
yeah.
going to be under pressure by the board or whoever to deliver, right? So I'm just wondering, how do you then manage up in this case?
Managing up, right?
Yeah.
I think because for me, managing the expectations of, having to build up the trust. So the trust building is not just for those you're working, on the lateral level, but also managing up to your bosses. Also need to build trust with them. Um, and building trust with them is actually, you cannot run away from outcomes.
Yeah.
You can't run away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the good thing about us is we have regular check-ins with the boss, regular meetings. I would say, I wouldn't say it is like very often once weekly or anything like that, but it's on a termly basis. So every quarterly and all, we will have a check-in with the board. But I do regular check-ins with other members of the board as well, on an individual basis, looking at things. And the thing is this, when I do meet them, while sharing the outcome, I'm also always preparing myself to share what is not working as well, and
Oh.
what would be my uh, recommendations or what I would do differently in order to manage the things or I wouldn't say problems, but I would say the challenges that come in. So that when they say, all right, what are you going to do about this? I already have ready answers. So I think what I would tell the letter writer is your outcome may not always be positive and good. You
Okay.
can't expect that, right?
Yeah.
The results will fluctuate.
Yeah.
But I think what bosses want to hear more from us is not about things are going right, but when things are not going right, how prepared are we to manage that, to address those issues, and to work through those challenges and make it different, do it differently. How differently do we want to do it? How much better do we want to do it? How willing are we to make changes and all that? I think what they are looking out is also to see, in terms of our thought processes as well. Yeah, the systems that we have,
Yeah.
and more so is the mental processes, and to walk them through that. And I think they would really appreciate that. Yeah, so for me, that was how things usually work. And I don't usually have everything roses,
Yeah. Yeah.
in tinted colored, pink color. No, whenever I see them, there will always be one or two problems,
Yeah. Yeah.
big ones, small
Yeah.
ones, and all. But there are times also when I feel that I just can't do it on my own. I do refer to them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a few board members who I accept them as like a mentor, and
Right.
I talk with them and then said, okay, this is a problem. This is what I think I'm going to do. What do you think? From your own expert knowledge area, or even your own experience, what would you recommend or advise? But I have already some answers for them,
Yeah.
and then we talk it through, and then just walk them through the whole process.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. I mean, that is exactly what accountability is all about. I think a lot of times
Yes.
young leaders they mistaken accountability, or even some senior leaders they mistaken accountability as results. In this case, that means you
Mm,
must show results.
yeah.
That is accountability, but it is what you just said just now. It is the very definition of accountability, that you're accountable not only for the results, but also you're accountable for the how to get the results, the processes, the
Yes.
background, and so on,
Yeah.
which means there are certain times where you will that the results will not have results in this case, but you're
Mm,
prepared to have like options and processes in place and strategies, or rethink about certain things, and then to have discussions, and these are all part of the accountability process. And it's just not about like show me the results, if not, your head's on the chopping board.
yeah.
I think a lot of times it is when after such discussions and so on, and yet the person still make the same mistakes again several times, I think then yes, of course there'll be
Mm,
consequences. But I think a lot of
yeah.
times most board of directors uh, or bosses in this case, or big bosses, they are very sensible. They also understand that there are market
Yes.
conditions and so on, right? As long as you are prepared in terms of what ways that you can change to make things happen in
Mm,
this case. Okay, I
yes.
think we've got a lot for the letter writer to consider. So let me very quickly recap. So the letter writer, what are some of the actions that the letter writer can consider? Number one is understand that it's really about building trust both below as well as also at the top. So we talk about like building trust in this case, it's really about relationship management. It's really about focus on the rapport in this case, right? And as and when you do that, it's really about asking and really listening, and do not be afraid of the feedback that you receive. Do not be upset, but be curious instead, because these are all data points to help you to craft out your work in front of you in this case. And when you do that enough, then your credibility would also improve because you're addressing
Mm,
some of this feedback, right? And when that happens, it's also very important to also speak to your market leaders to also let them know as well what are your challenges as well, to say that hey, we are not here to standardize, but we're here to support, right? So what that means is that you need to be able to customize your language to listen to what challenges they're going through. It could be some could be a bit more directive, which is what they want. Some could be much more supportive in this case. So, but it's really to be able to align, like what you said, to look at the common values, the shared goals, the shared, and try to see, okay, so these are the things that we need to achieve together, both the
mm,
mothership as well as the local markets. And I
mm,
just want you to be clear about that. But I also hear that on your end as well, that you have got certain challenges. Let's see what we can do with all these things. So these are all the
mm,
conversations and so on. But without the trust which is built earlier on, without offering to say how I can help you and so on, this kind of conversations would not happen in this case, right?
yeah.
And it takes time, like you said, and it is a conversation. It's a conversation. It's not instructional. Conversation here means to and fro a few times in this case, right? Then we also talk about leveraging on your champions and collaborators as well. Don't do this. It's
Yeah.
not a solo endeavor. This is something which the letter writer can consider, because that's also a very powerful leverage you can also consider in this case. And we also talk about lastly just now about managing the board directors. I think this is really good. What happens is that managing your boss, it's really about the regular check-ins with them. It's also really
Mm,
about building trust, right? So it's to look at them as mentors rather than like someone to report to. So when you look at them as like, hey, how can I leverage on your experience, because you are sitting on the board for a particular reason. So when you have such things, they are open to actually help you. They are
yeah.
much more invested in the business in this case, right? And not to be afraid to say what is not working as well, but also to come up with some solutions along the way. So it's just not going there to just bring your hand and you say like, oh, I don't know, please help me, right? So, but it's to say that, okay, this is working and this is not working. And for those things which are not working, these are some of the considerations, but I would like to hear your thoughts as well. So this kind of, again, to and fro conversations build trust. That is something which how this letter writer can manage the expectation from the global boss as well.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Wow, we spent quite a fair bit of time on this letter, but I was really excited as well because it's something which I'm learning along the way about dealing with authority, global boss, dealing with board directors, which my previous job had to do that, and I'm
Yeah.
learning from it. If I only knew this, I could have managed them better. Okay, all right. Moving on, letter number 2. This letter here sounds a bit much more personal. Um, so, dear Building Better Leaders, I work in a non-profit organization that does deep, meaningful work. We support vulnerable communities through education and advocacy. I joined because I believe in the mission. I still do, but lately, I feel like I'm running on empty. My role involves leading a small but passionate team. Everyone's stretched thin, wearing multiple hats, and emotionally invested in the outcomes. Because of that, I find myself constantly holding space for their stress, their overwhelm, their grief when things don't go as planned. I check in often, encourage them, and try to create a psychologically safe space. But in doing that, I've quietly sidelined my own well-being. I rarely share that I'm struggling because I feel like I must stay strong for everyone else. There's always another crisis, another report, another donor to appease. The hardest part is this. In a non-profit world, passion is the fuel, but also the trap. Saying no feels like letting someone down. Taking a break feels like I'm not doing enough. So how do I keep leading with passion without losing myself to the emotional weight of the work? How do I care without carrying it all?
Sounds very familiar. Yeah, very
Would
familiar.
you want to be able to
Mm,
provide some pointers for this person first to consider?
yeah. Look, when you were reading the letter, it reminded me of I think many years back, a few years back, when I was a principal and I attended this leadership course, and it was talking about compassionate leadership, and we had to do this questionnaire to see where we are in terms of our compassion for others and compassion for self. And when after that we were given the results, and I remembered I was shocked because compassion for others for me was very high, and the one that was very, very low for me is self-compassion.
Wow.
Compassion for self. So that's why I said this is, and this letter reminded me of that. And I remembered that a number of us in the group actually had very low reading for self-compassion. And I remember the trainer actually had to spend some time, he didn't intend to, but he had to spend some time just walking us through on this thing about self-compassion, finding out from us what about self-compassion that we kind of resist in that sense. And it comes again with self-care, because many of us felt that as leaders, we should be taking care of others, that we forget about ourselves. And he said, the first person you should take care of yourself, because we always think that self-care is selfish because it's about me first, right? And recently I remember I had this conversation with someone, and we talk about self-care, and self-care is actually about me too, not me first. Me too. You are important. My team is important. The people I'm taking care of are important. Me too am important. Yeah, so that kind of shifts the way we look at, self-compassion and self-care. So I think that's why this letter writer, it's like as if she's writing about many of us, and especially those who are working in, I think she's working in a non-profit
Yeah,
organization
yeah.
in self-help groups, and this is quite common because they are very passionate people. They care about others, and they are there for others, nurturing, supporting. And in that process, sometimes there is no receiving because we're
Yeah.
always giving, because we feel that I feel guilty of receiving. I feel guilty of taking time off for myself because
Yeah.
we always think about me first. But now, if it's me too, then by all means. So, yeah, that was the first sense I get that you need to protect. It is important for us to also protect our own energy.
Yeah. Agree.
Um, to have this thing called emotional boundaries, to establish some form of emotional boundaries. That it's okay to say no sometimes. That it is okay. Not to do everything. Um, and sometimes we feel that people need us, but actually, most of the time, we need others as well. So that was the first thing that comes to my mind when you read the letter was like, oh wow, welcome. You are not alone. Many of us, are with you on this. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I also once worked in a non-profit before, part time. I was serving there for quite a while, about 10 years. Um, I think there's a double-edged sword on this whole thing called purpose, right? So,
Yeah.
so purpose is clearly, of course, a very powerful motivator, but it also can be like a trap as well, right?
Yeah.
Where there's this unspoken culture of non-profit, well, at least where I was previously, that sacrifice is necessary to create real impact, even though it is not said, right? But there's this thing about sacrifice. But if I don't
Mm.
sacrifice, then there's no real impact in this case. So there's this thought about like we need to bleed to prove our commitment in this case. Now I do not literally bleed, but you need to sacrifice in this case, right? In order for us to show
Mm.
commitment in this case. So I think then that is where there is, like you say, there's no emotional boundary because we feel guilty when we are not sacrificing in this case. We feel guilty when we are not resting, or when we are resting in this case, right? We feel guilty for saying no, or even not wanting to help in this case. So I think
Mm.
that is something which I can clearly resonate with this person as well. I think one thing that the letter writer can consider, besides the reframe of what you said just now, that yes, we need to take care of all the other people, but me too, right? In this case, right? So, but besides that, I would also like to add on for this person to reframe, or at least rethink again what is enough, right? So, because compared to, for example, a for-profit organization, it's pretty clear. There are a lot of clear milestones and so on, right? There is very definitive goals in this case. But usually for non-profit, it's ongoing. It is almost like,
Mm.
so so in order for one to be able to know what is enough, sometimes it's really about putting in certain measurable milestones as well, so
Yep.
that it is sustainable over time. It can't be
Mm.
just infinite in this case, right? Yes, I mean the cost is infinite for sure, but I think this is where, but we are humans, we cannot be infinite, so we need to be able to also understand what our boundaries. So in order for the mission to come across as more sustainable, sometimes it's really about rethinking what is enough by putting in certain measurable milestones, so that at
Mm.
least when we kind of like, oh, achieve that, we will celebrate in this case. But of course, there's a
Yes.
bigger hill to climb, but at least we managed to so-called overcome this hill. This is something
Mm.
which I also like the letter writer to consider about rethinking that the mission by having clear
Mm.
milestones.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you on that. In fact, one of the things that when I was listening to you, is that I think when we talk about, we work in a non-profit organization, that there's no measurable thing. They always talk about impact.
Yeah,
What's the
yeah,
impact I make, right?
yeah.
So it's actually necessary to celebrate the small wins. And when I think to maintain that passion is to celebrate small wins.
Yeah,
It's not about the big, because there's going to be a journey.
yeah.
When you work in a non-profit organization, it's a journey itself. So you need to learn to celebrate small wins, regularly reflecting what's the positive impact that you already have made, with the community that you're working with. because sometimes when you celebrate your small successes, right, it helps to reinforce your own purpose without becoming a bit overwhelmed, and I think it's also important for us. I mean, I've also, like yourself, I've worked in non-profit self-help groups, and it's very important, especially if you work as volunteers or so,
Yeah.
to remind ourselves of the meaningful difference that we are making. It's not just about giving, but being able to. I think we need to be able to differentiate between caring deeply and taking on the others. Caring deeply is good, but when we take on others' emotional burdens completely without knowing how to detach or dissociate ourselves from there, that's when we feel overwhelmed, because we feel that we are doing so much and not seeing much results. Because, like I said, it's a journey. So if we're able to just reflect on, you know, uh, what we are here for, the motivation. Like you said, sometimes purpose can be a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
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 But I think most importantly is to reconnect with the core reason that you are there. Why did you do this? Because for me, okay, this is from personal experience. Sometimes when we do that, we connect with your core reason, you find that it kind of shifts you back on track. On even if you're facing some challenging time, you're feeling overwhelmed, you kind of look at, okay, I think I need to celebrate this. This is one small victory. Okay, celebrate it. At least I've got this done. And like you say, it's a milestone. You need to
Yeah.
create that
Yeah.
milestone for yourselves. I think that's very, it's going to be quite useful and very helpful for us. What some people do is they have reflection moments. For me, I call it decompression.
Okay.
I will always have a decompression moments. Whether when I come back from doing some voluntary work, because I work with people a lot. Right now I do coaching and all. So sometimes when you work with people, especially if they share with you some emotional burdens of themselves, and if we are not careful, we don't have that boundary, we tend to absorb some of
Yeah.
this energy as well. So we
Agree.
need to have some decompression time where we set aside our own time for reflection and our own I call it self-renewal. Decompression is more like self-renewal, activities. It can be anything. Some people, they do mindfulness. For some people, they call it healing. They
Yeah.
just sit for 5 minutes and just kind of reflect through things I'm grateful for today, something like that, or things I could have done differently. And I know of people who actually does journaling. I do journaling. And I just need to unload, all these things, because it's, when you pour water into a cup, after a
Yeah.
while it's full. You need to
Yes.
empty that cup. So
Yes.
for
Agree.
me, journaling is emptying that cup and just writing down. And I don't even think I just write it down. And the next day when I read through the journal, I say, hey, actually not bad, huh? I read some beautiful things, when when I'm overwhelmed, I do write some beautiful things over here, and I say, oh, what can I learn? That kind of thing. So, yeah, those are things that the letter writer could consider doing.
Okay.
Find your own means of decompressing.
Very good.
Yeah, find your own times also where you work best at decompressing it, because we do need to unload
Yeah.
ourselves before we take on the full load again.
I like the
Yeah.
cup analogy. Yeah, that I'm also reminded right now on another letter C, car analogy. Someone once told me before that imagine if you only have one car for the rest of your life, and you're gonna take care of this car right up to the end. You only have one car, you cannot change cars, right? So if you only have one, then clearly it's going to be for the long term. So then you gotta send it for maintenance, you gotta service it. You cannot like drive in 24/7. You can't do that. You need to learn how to and all these things, right? So imagine this car is your body, right? And you only have one body now
Mm.
in this case, right? And I think it takes it punishes the body, especially when we do a lot of people work in this case. Like you say, when you deal
Yes.
with people, there are a lot of emotion and so on. It's not only about the body, but the whole entire well-being of that person, right? So I think it's really important to really take care, like you say, to learn to have decompression time, self-healing, learn to ask for help as well. So it's not
Mm.
it's not really about this whole self-righteous thing where or the savior mentality that I'm the only one who's called to do this, so I need to do everything myself. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important not to fall into that trap. I need to carry this burden, but instead of saying I, like we need to carry this burden together, right? When let's
Yeah.
say you were serving in a particular ministry or non-profit in this case, I think it's also important that this letter writer to consider that it's not only about me, it's about we, right? How can we do
Yeah.
this together in this case?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like you say, rest, take some breaks, decompress, create everyday boundaries also will help. Something simple
Mm.
like no emails after 7 p.m. or something like that. But whatever it is, you think of it like what you say, you know, uh, uh, from an analogy perspective, like a cup or like a car. You only have one car. What would you do to take care of this car so that this car will take you all the way, to the end in this case? So, but we only have one body. So what do we
Mm.
do, right? We have to learn how to manage our energies as
Mm.
well. So I think these are some of the things that the letter writer can consider. Um,
Mm.
before we finish this letter, I think it's also important that this letter writer understand that, because I will assume this person is a leader of sorts, leading small passion. Yeah, this person is a leader, and like it or not, the people would look up to you. So we need to model this. So if we have this mentality of we need to bleed in order for us to show, a real impact. We need to bleed in order to show commitment. Uh, that is not helpful, because then you will also duplicate, this kind of thinking and culture. Then everyone also will be that. Then everyone also will be burnt out as well. So as leaders, we need to learn how to model that as well. Be very careful
Yeah.
with how we show up. Um,
Yeah.
Anything else to add on before we close?
Mm. Yeah, one last one, because I like the part when you say that we must also learn to have realize the we. It's a we, it's not an I thing.
Yeah.
Especially when you're working, in this kind of community. And I think having a support system is very important.
Mm.
Having a supportive community, a support system. Sometimes when you share experiences and your advice, right, it can provide some form of emotional relief for you, or even practical solutions that sometimes it kind of escape us, especially if we working or doing it alone. So I would say to the letter writer, build a network, colleagues or friends or mentors where you can share this emotional weight. I mean, don't hesitate, seek support, or delegate, even delegate tasks if you need to. Just remember, we don't know everything and we don't need to shoulder everything. Share, because sometimes when we have regular check-ins with our fellow colleagues, or even people who are leading uh, other organizations like yourself, it can be like a source of encouragement for us
Mm.
as well, because
Mm.
they can give us different perspective. We can share strategies, and this can help us to prevent our own emotional overload. So I think when you are in a leadership position, and especially when you are in a work where you give a lot, support system can be very useful for us as well. So build that network and be a part of a supportive community. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's what I just want to encourage the letter writer to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what we're telling the letter writer. First of all, learn how to reframe that. Yes, of course, you're here to help, to care for others, but also remember that it's also you need to care for yourself as well. So you need to have,
Mm,
as you care, then comma, me too. You need to care, you take care of yourself as well, right?
yeah.
So you need to reframe that have that mindset. Second thing is also to rethink again about this whole thing about impact, right? Because impact is infinite. It's a long game. It's a journey, like you said. But it's also important then to be able to celebrate the small wins, to break it down to measurable milestones, so that we can celebrate, we can look back again and say, hey, I did quite an okay job here, because it's a long game, right? In this case, and we also talk about some practical steps. If you imagine yourself as just you only have one body, or you have one car, in this case one vehicle to get there. There are some practical steps, like for example, learn to have decompression time, self-renewal, learn to build support system around you, to learn to
Mm,
ask for help. So it's just not I, but we can do this together. Learn how to create very healthy emotional boundaries, learn to take rest, learn to journal and so on. So you talk about all those things,
Yeah.
and I think ultimately also to learn how to reconnect back with your core reason, your why are you actually doing this in this case. So I think these are some of the
Yes.
practical steps, and hopefully these pointers will be able to help our letter writer. Okay,
Yes.
and on
All
to
the
the
best.
final letter. All the best.
All the best to you. I'm with you.
Okay, letter number 3, the final letter that we have for today. Uh, Dear Building Better Leaders, I lead a team that spans 3 generations, from fresh grads to those approaching retirement. It's becoming more and more obvious that our work styles and values are clashing. Our younger team members want flexibility, regular feedback, and to feel that their work is meaningful. Meanwhile, some of our more experienced team members value structure, hierarchy, and staying in their lanes. I get where both sides are coming from, I really do, but I find myself constantly stuck in the middle. I'm trying hard to balance today's work culture while respecting legacy systems and experiences. I want to create an inclusive culture, but when team dynamics feel this divided, morale drops. I'm passionate about bringing people together, but right now it feels like I'm failing both groups. How do I bridge this gap and lead a team that sees the world so differently? Well, over to you because yeah, as you mentioned just now, you took care of primary, secondary as well as pre-U as well. So clearly, there's a
Yeah.
lot of different groups and so on. But let's very quickly just start off with some of your pointers or some of your thoughts on this letter writer. Where do we begin?
I think the first part is actually to recognize that these two groups, they have their own unique strengths and perspectives. The new, the experienced staff members, and I think we need to recognize and value that. Yeah. Okay. From my own experience, sometimes it's also necessary as a leader to create, um, I would say, a safe space where everyone actually will feel that they are being heard, they are being valued. And this is why I always tell my two vice principals, I said that, both groups are actually equally important to the organization, to the school. The experienced staff, they are very practical, very pragmatic, and they can tell you where the loopholes are because they're very experienced. So if you have, you put certain systems or structure, they can tell you this will not work because da 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 da, or this will work because da da da. Okay, and for the new staff members, they comes from a space of the idealistic view of how things should run, and so therefore they can be very creative and they're very optimistic. And sometimes we need also people who have the optimism and hope to be able to see things differently because we need to do things sometimes in a different way, especially in current landscape. So if we can bring both teams together to work together, I think that would be so marvelous. It will be like, you can just see fireworks working. But in order for them to come together, we need to create a safe space first.
How would this safe
So that
space look like?
the safe space would be that where everybody, this thing about psychological safety, where
Yeah.
everyone is being heard and everyone feels that whatever input they give, it is not being, diminished, but instead it is being encouraged and celebrated. So everything they say is important. We accept it. We will think about it, and no one's views is going to be, said that it doesn't work. So what I sometimes do is, when we have brainstorming, I would say, okay, we're not going to evaluate anything. Everything you say is going to go on the board.
Oh.
Nothing is going to be evaluated. We will evaluate it later. But whatever ideas you come, it can be a new idea or it can be something you build upon another person's idea, and you can also build upon this person's idea. We will put it on the board, and we will not evaluate it yet. We will do it another time. So everybody just give your own idea openly. So in a way, that space is allowing everyone to say things without being judged, without being afraid that they're going to be judged. So every opinion and ideas count, and it matter. So this is what I mean by collaborative meetings. If something that you are not agreeable to, you can say it later, but not during the brainstorming session. And I think that safe space that is created will give everyone feels that belonging and inclusion, that your diverse perspectives actually matters here and it counts, and that diversity that this person talk about, um, is actually celebrated as an asset rather than a divide in a way. Yeah, but it has to be done in a manner that is more conscious than unconscious. You have to deliberately do it, instead of, oh, we will try this out. No, it has to be a deliberate, intentional session in a way. Yes, and from there, then we can see what comes out. So I think psychological safety is the foundation first when we have a diverse group such as that. Because everybody will say, "Oh, I'm more experienced than you, and I have gone through this. I have gone through this for 30 years, and it has worked." And the newer members will say, "Oh, but that idea is so old, so
Yeah.
old-fashioned. It's not going to bring us anywhere. We are in a different landscape." So as a leader, it's how we manage that and say, "Okay, everybody, your thoughts counts, but it's not about uh, disagreeing yet, but let's hear what everybody has, and
Okay. Okay.
just bring it forth, and then from there we'll see what comes up."
What
Yeah.
I like just now, you mentioned about being very deliberate and intentional. So when you run, for example, this brainstorming sessions, were you intentional in also bringing in really the two groups, right? So one would be the experience, and the other one would be
Yeah.
the new group in this case. Is it designed that way to bring both together as well?
um, yes, I actually designed it.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
designed it in such a way that whenever there is a need to form a working committee,
Yeah.
I will, in fact, I wouldn't say instruction, but I would share with the heads of departments, in that working committee. I would like you to have experienced member and new members, because like I say, I see the value of both groups, because sometimes when you have too many creative ideas and may not be practical, it not may not be something that can be that is doable. So we need these other groups as well to come in. And then if you just focus on pragmatic solutions, sometimes we need to think out of the box as well, and we need a fresh perspective on things, whatever challenges we're facing. So I my expectation would be, just ensure that in your team you must have these two groups of people together. Yeah, I would need them, the new ones and also the experienced ones. So it is designed in that way. When we first started, it's designed, and even the sessions are made very intentional and purposeful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to as you're saying that got me thinking about a few points. Number one would be, I think, um, like what you say. First of all, understand that each generation has its own uniqueness in this case, and those are strength, right? Um, I think it's also to understand that why some people resist or they push back, right? It's because I think ultimately we being as humans, there's this whole thing about self-preservation, because this is
Mm.
what we value, this is what we know has been working, and now there is a possibility that this idea may not work anymore, and I'm afraid that if that happens, then I will be out of a job, or maybe I will not feel relevant in this case. So I rather fight that than to accept change in this case. I think that's important to understand, like why people resist. And if you understand that, and to be able to address the elephant in the room, literally during the brainstorming, to say that, hey, we understand that this group here um, is very optimistic, to a certain extent idealistic, but this group here, very experienced. So we understand that, and we also understand that there is some resistance for sure.
Yeah.
So I think when you
Mm.
address it that way, to address the elephant in the room, then there's nothing to hide in this case. Everyone knows that, okay, the boss knows, the leaders know what's going on, right? So they shouldn't be afraid about it. That's how we
Yeah.
design the safe space. I think it's also important then. Let's say if I'm the facilitator or I'm like the boss of this meeting in this case, as I address the elephant in the room, I think it's also important then to be able to say before we start the brainstorming session for this project that we're working on in this case, just would like you to know that this is the outcome that we're looking for, right? I think that is very important, and it's just not like for the sake of just getting two teams together, but to say there is an outcome, there is a bigger mission that we're here to serve,
Yeah.
right? And in order for us to serve this bigger mission, that's why both of you are here in this case, right? Why? Because you represent optimism and you represent experience in this case, right? So how can we design then a solution which has both optimism and also leveraging experience? So when we so-called create such so-called rules in this case, or rules of engagement, say this is what we're looking for, this is the end goal, and this is how what we should be, the expectation is to have a solution which celebrates both sides. How do we do that? Now let's get on the board. There's no stupid ideas. Everyone just throw and see what happens. Then we will decide from there. But you set the boundaries, you set the expectations, what we're looking for, instead of just everywhere in this case,
Yeah.
right? So at least you kind of like draw the boundaries. Say this is what we're looking for exactly to celebrate both sides. So I think this is also very designed, very as in very consciously designed into the whole process as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I like that. I like that. I like that you mentioned that about boundaries and all. Um, because I think what is important, yes, there must be a shared objective, and you need to focus on that shared objective, like what we are doing this. So, it is actually when we are doing sessions like this, it is important to also highlight what is the common purpose. All of us have this common purpose, and the common purpose is this. Like you mentioned, mission. What's the mission at the end? We need this particular outcome. The desired outcome of this session is actually A, B, C, or just A and B. So when we have this common purpose, I find that it helps to build some form of respect, cohesion of the team. In a way, I would say we unite the team around a common purpose, because everybody has their own. I think the letter writer mentioned different working styles,
Yeah, yeah.
different even expectations, and different personalities. Even if you talk about the experienced staff members, they also have different
Yes.
personalities which want to do things in a different way. One is more on let's go collaborative. The other one is, so no, I think I would prefer to work this on my own and think things through. The other one said, let's not just plan too much, let's just do it. So everybody has different personality as well. But I find that what unites a team is the common purpose. And that needs to be intentionally brought up. So like you said, let's address this elephant in the room. Everybody, we are here because of this thing that we're going to work on. How we're going to do it, this is why we are here. The how to is what we don't know. But the why we are here, it's very clear. And this is the objective and the outcome and the purpose that we are here. No matter how we want to do it, at the end of the day, it must serve this particular purpose and this particular outcome. So I think that kind of encourages people to come together, work together, and we want that respect. I think respect, like you say, is earned. Right? It's again, it's a process. It's not something we say, well, you need to respect them and all.
Yeah.
But how do we, as the leader or the facilitator, during that discussion, navigate this whole process? Actually, will speak to them on whether this session is going to be another top down, another sessions of I do it my way, you do it your way kind of thing, or it's going to really bring us all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the leader and the facilitator needs to have that same understanding as well. Yeah, and
I agree.
and if we are able to do that, I think I have seen beautiful beautiful process, and we see beautiful outcome as well.
Wow.
Yeah, when people understand the common purpose, and actually the discussion can be very robust and rich. because everyone is so different. And I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, let's put this down, that kind of thing. But whoever facilitates that discussion must be aware
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
outcome and purpose as well.
yeah.
And the fact that we want to, encourage respect and trust and cohesion.
Mm.
And in that process, whatever that's going to come out of it is what the process will lead us
Okay,
to.
okay.
Yeah. So this is something that I want to encourage the letter writer to try at least one of the points that either Kausern or myself suggest. Just try it, because
Yeah,
I think for Kausern you would have already maybe implemented it. For
yes.
me, I'm speaking from experience. Yes, we have done it. I have done it before,
Right.
and it is a beautiful process.
Nice,
It is going
nice.
to be a beautiful process. Yes. Yeah.
The last thing that I would like before we close is also to for the letter writer to consider. I'm sensing from the letter itself, it feels that this letter writer, I could be wrong, but wants to be able to solve the tension, want to be able to resolve it. But I would like the letter writer to reconsider, to reframe that it's not about resolving tensions, because tensions to a certain extent, not all tension, but to have enough tension is actually a good thing, because
Yeah.
it is
Mm.
through that tension innovation comes out, right? Creativity
Yes.
comes out. Like I don't know,
Yes.
like racket game and so on. If your racket is not tuned to that certain tension, or your guitar is not tuned to a certain tension, it would sound really horrible. So you need to be able to
Mm.
have that kind of like just enough tension to be able to birth out, that kind of innovation where no one really has thought about. So I think the letter writer needs to consider that it's not really about resolving tension, but to reframe the mindset, it's really about being the translator between the generations, right?
Yeah.
How do how to
Yeah.
how to do that? So it's not about like, okay, should we follow this or that? It's not about either or,
Mm.
but it's about and, right? How can we leverage? It's
Yeah.
about paradoxical thinking. It's about polarity thinking. How can we leverage on both in this
Yeah.
case, right?
I have an analogy when you
Yeah.
speak of that. The letter writer, I assume is a leader.
Okay.
You're in the center. And then here on the right, you have the experience. You're holding the hand of the experienced
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
staff members. Here, your new members,
Yes.
your new team. So there are times, when you hold hands, right? There are times when we are walking together.
Yeah.
But there are times when you are walking in front, they are behind you. There are
Yes.
times where the person on the right will be in front and we're just following. And there
Yeah.
are times when, but we are still together holding hands.
Yes.
You see? So it doesn't matter. There are certain situations where it requires us to be the one following or the one in front, but at the same time, we're still holding both hands, and they are still
Mm.
together with us.
Mm.
And I think it is also about building that professional learning community where we respect diverse perspectives, but we also motivate collective effort. So this is a collective effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
While they are different, they are all diverse, in their own way. It's an asset. It's an asset because at the end of it, this is what actually helped us to develop that shared vision,
Mm.
as a team.
Mm.
So I agree with you, Carlson. It's not about either or. It's about together. It's
Yes.
about we are together. It's not about either you or me, but we are holding hands
Mm.
because
Mm.
we are in one team. And I think how we are learning from each other's strengths and then how we can adapt. It's not about adopting, but adapting these practices collaboratively, so that everyone, can share their best practices. Everyone can be, having knowledge exchange without fear of being judged or being put down, and in that process, mutual respect,
Mm.
can be developed because the space is very safe for them.
Agree.
And I
Agree.
feel that, it is inclusive, that I feel belonged here. And I think that is what we want to create. And that
Okay.
has to be, you have to hold both hands. Yeah,
Nice.
it's not
Nice.
about, yeah. So tension, like you said, tension can be good,
Yeah.
but when we're holding hands,
Yeah.
that tension will just dissipate.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
So I would like to see it's not as tension, but sometimes you're in front and I'm still holding your
Yes.
hand
Yes.
and
Yes.
we are
Yes.
all following together.
Yes.
So we take turns to be in front, or sometimes we are all on the same side, holding
Okay.
hands. Yeah, we can see that. Yeah.
Thanks. I like the analogy. Uh, so what we're telling the letter writer here, to recap, is that hold the hands, right? In this case,
Yeah.
I mean, not literally, but to understand that there are recognize the tension, recognize that they're living in a room, and your role as a leader in this case is to celebrate the diversity by holding on both sides of the hands, on each one, right? And you are the so-called the connector, right, between this generation. Yes, there are times when one will be in front, the other one will be back, but you're still holding their hand together in this case. So it is not really about, that's how we manage that tension in this case. And also we are recommending the letter writer to also recognize that it's important to create a safe space, right? When, for example, we talk about a brainstorming session for a project, to create a safe space, but not to frivolously create, but it's to be very deliberate about it, even up to the process. So when in that, for example, in that meeting itself, it's really about, first of all, addressing the parameters. Number one, to say that, hey, we have got two groups here, and it is intentional that way. Why? Because we see there are strengths on both sides, and to call out those strengths, and then to be able to also address what is that shared objective, that bigger vision, to say the reason why we are both sides here is because we want to be able to leverage on both of your experiences and your uniqueness to be able to achieve this one shared objective, this big mission in this case. And this is how we are going to do it. The why must be clear, but how we're going to do it is where it is, there's no wrong answers. Let's get everybody on the board, just put everything there, and then see where we go from there in this case. So I think these are very practical steps and practical pointers for the letter writer to consider. And that's it. I think we're done. We're done. So, good job.
Beautiful wrap. Beautiful wrap up, Kausern.
Thank you, Nafisah, for joining me today. I really appreciate once again your perspective, your stories. I'm sure the audience will remember a lot of these stories because they're very real and very practical, and very raw at times as well. I really appreciate that. And for those who have sat through all the way, listening to this or watching this in this case, I really appreciate your time, which means hopefully you get a lot of value from this. And in order for more people to get value from such content, please engage with this content, like, share, and so on, so that more people will benefit from such a content. So with that, thank you very much. We also leave the link for those who want to write in of the letters they want to share with us, so that we can look into it and address it as well. So thank you once again, Nafisah, for being with us, for being with me. Really appreciate it. I don't think I can do all these things myself, and it's not the I, but it's a we. So thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Kausern, for having me here. Really.
All right.
Yes. And I think it has been, for me, it has been a really wonderful conversations that we've had, and thinking about my own experience and journey, and I think I just appreciate everything that you're doing for all our young leaders out there. Like you said, to build better leaders, we have to look at our young and see what we can do to encourage and support them as well.
Thank you. You're very kind. It reminded me of the first time we met. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Building Better Leaders with Kausern Hieu podcast is the advice column for leaders today. Produced and edited by me, Susan Yong. Got a leadership challenge at work? Send us a letter today. More information in the description box.